What is up, everyone? It's R&R Talking Football here. Brian Gallagher and Ryan Moran. By the time you're listening to this, it's probably going to be about 5 days from the 2022 NFL Draft. It's a very exciting time. A lot of angst. We're all waiting. A lot of rumors being floated around out there in the media, starting at the top of the draft. And there's a ton of unknowns this year. And it's very exciting. I think we're all just ready to really see, how things end up playing out. And we'll run through this mock draft tonight about, what we think these teams are going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the wildest and weirdest drafts in recent memory. Like, we don't really know what's going to happen, honestly, with the first pick. And then the domino effect of what happens it can't be understated. Like, it's literally changing the draft. I feel like the mocks from the start, like, they always change after the combine, but they're still changing up until the draft, which is pretty insane because everyone kind of remembers last year was kind of penciled in, or everyone had a good idea what was happening in the top 10. This year, it's kind of all over the place, which makes it really fun.
Absolutely. Starting with that first pick.
Yeah, so let's talk about the first pick. I feel like when we started this podcast, we were kind of zoned in at tackle, and then and then they kind of franchise tag Cam Robinson, and then the direction changed. I feel like Hudson was locked in for quite a while, and then we've heard nothing but you can call it smoke, you can call it whatever you want, but the last couple of weeks have been Trayvon Walker. I think has really been climbing up the draft board, and if I was the Jaguars, I'm most likely taking Hutchinson. But we're also basing this mock on what we think is going to happen, not what we would do, just to make that clear. I really do think it's like a split decision. I feel like multiple people want one person and, the other kind of half of the Jaguars staff wants another player. I feel like Doug Peterson, though, would most likely want to tackle. I just don't feel like he has the influence I don't think he's going to have final call in this decision. So I think I think I'm going to vote for Trayvon Walker here. I just feel like, it's been kind of rolling that way. I feel like it's 50-50 right now, but I feel like Trent, Black Guy kind of has the power there and the decision making. I feel like once it's all said and done, he'll make the final call, and I feel like he's gonna end up with Walker.
I'm with you on Trayvon Walker. I mean, the top three I had it down to were him, Aiden Hutchinson, who, like you said, for the longest time, it seemed like it was going to be him after Cam Robinson was surprisingly franchise tagged. And the other one I had was Ike Ekwonu, because I think Doug Peterson would love to prioritize, investing in Trevor Lawrence and giving him, as much help as possible. And that starts up front on the offensive line. But just the way it seems right now, I mean, they're going to go with the upside. They're going to go with the traits, the off the charts athletic score that Trayvon Walker put together. And, hopefully for them, with him being in more of a, consistent role as an edge rusher, with his ability, he grows into something dominant for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the Lions would be very happy in this case scenario. I feel like this would be a no-brainer. And they run up the card for Hudson.
Very easy.
Let's say Hudson goes 1. What do you think the Lions do at 2?
I think it's either Kayvon Thibodeau or Trayvon Walker.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Early on, I remember after there was some talk about Hamilton like weeks and weeks ago. It feels like months at this point. I don't think that's, that's not happening anymore.
I agree.
I can't really see any other position because their offensive line is filled in.
Yeah.
I guess the wild card will be Malik Willis. I feel like a quarterback would be the other scenario. We haven't heard much about it, but
no.
You never know. When you need a quarterback, you need a quarterback. So that leaves us with the Houston Texans.
I'm leaning towards Ike Ekwonu here, but I wouldn't be shocked if they went with Sauce Gardner. But ultimately, I'm going Ekwonu.
Yeah, so I think I've been on Ekwonu for quite a long time, but Sauce is starting, I think, gain steam here a little bit because they have the Lovie Smith defense. They did sign Steven Nelson. There's a lot of Patriots influence here in the front office. That they're one of the teams that values defensive backs over pass rush. But obviously that's not anything to do with Ekwonu. But I feel like you're right. I feel like you're right, but I feel like it'd be really, really close because I feel like they're trying to give Davis Mills a chance. And even though they have Tunsil and Titus Howard, I feel like Ekwonu can play guard for a while. And then if need be, he can come in and play right tackle in the future. And I think he's probably the best prospect in the draft, top 2 anyway. So.
Absolutely.
So that leaves us in a good situation for our Jets. I think this is one of the scenarios we'll be pretty happy with.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we need to talk much. I think we're both
Dave on Thibodeau.
Thibodeau.
All day. I'd be pumped.
Absolutely. So that's what we're hoping for happens anyway. The Giants.
I think another no-brainer.
Yeah, I guess we can just talk about maybe the order, but I don't think you would risk taking Sauce here and the Panthers taking offensive lineman at 6.
Absolutely.
But it wouldn't stun me if they know if they take Sauce at 5 instead. But I guess there is talks about them liking Charles Cross a lot.
Okay.
So maybe the Giants literally are good about like either one, and then they just say, all right, we don't want anybody trading up to 6 because everyone knows we want Sauce. So I could see that happening, but
sure.
I think you play it safe here and you get your guy, which is Evan Neal.
100%.
The Panthers.
I feel like this is where it gets interesting. I could see quarterback or offensive tackle.
Yeah, I actually I was looking at I forgot who posted it, but I feel like Carolina under this general manager, he's traded out a lot in previous stints and previous jobs. So that kind of like I'm keeping an eye on that in the draft. I feel like they will be looking to move down because I do feel like they like Kenny Pickett a lot, but I feel like you can most likely get him in the teens, So with that being said, there's a lot of Baker Mayfield smoke to them. I think they're kind of the favorites apparently to get him. And they still have Darnold, unfortunately. So they got to deal with that for one more year. Maybe they don't want Matt Rule making the decision, honestly, because everyone knows he's on the hot seat. He's most likely getting fired, midway through this year, end of this year. So maybe you do just take an offense lineman. I think
it's like I said, for me, between Kenny Pickett and Charles Cross, it's very close.
Yeah, I mean the last couple of weeks, man. I think since we've been doing this, I've been picking quarterback for them. I think I've chose Pickett every single time. I feel like I'm going to be wrong about that, so I feel like I'm going to change it to Cross.
Yeah, I have no issue with that at all. I mean, they need offensive line help in the worst way. So,
and then the Giants are on the board. I'm pretty happy. I feel like
Sauce.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of a no-brainer. Bradbury's kind of on his way out because they have cap issues is the real answer. But under Wink's defense, they need secondary help, and Sauce Gardner is one of the best prospects in this draft class.
He's a perfect fit for Wink's scheme.
Absolutely, and Giants will be thrilled. I think their fans will be thrilled with this kind of draft. I actually think this is pretty realistic for them. I feel like I give this a 70% chance happening for the Giants, no matter what happens in the top 4 or 5. Or top 4 because they pick 5. But let's move on to the Falcons.
An interesting one here.
Yeah, this is one of the I'll say trickier ones because they have a lot of holes. They're a rebuilding team.
I was between receiver Jermaine Johnson and Jordan Davis.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Let's kind of break it down one by one.
Yep.
Receiver, they definitely need. Like, if you want to give Marcus Mariota any single chance, like I don't think they have an NFL caliber starter on the roster right now, besides Kyle Pitts, who's like tight end. But there's not a lot, working there, unfortunately, because a lot of them left in free agency, and Calvin Ridley's gone for the season. So I do think if they go receiver, though, I think it's going to be Jameson Williams.
I agree.
I feel like we talked about this in previous mocks, but speed, teams value speed. The fastest guys are usually the first receivers off the board. And basically in any kind of draft, unless there's a Jamar Chase type of talent. But if they don't go that, Jermaine Johnson, I mean, edge has been a need for them for almost as long as the Jets, it seems like, for years. Dante Fowler isn't there anymore. He was underwhelming anyway. But, Jordan Davis, another decision because I don't think Grady Jarrett's there for the long term either. And Jordan Davis had a really good year, but a crazy combine. So the upside is certainly there. Could they go Stingley? I know they have AJ Terrell is really good. But
they did sign Casey Hibbert, which is why I'm unsure if they would go.
But we don't get fooled by that because Denver.
He's older.
Denver did that last year where they signed owners and they were younger. Yeah. So like the Falcons, and I guess we'll talk about it as well. Quarterback, it's still a possibility.
For sure. Yeah.
So this team seems to be like all over the place. There's like 4 or 5 ways they can go. It's not really going to shock anybody. I do think they'll end up. I think it's going to be Jameson Williams.
I'm with you.
I just feel like they have to, and I feel like that's kind of the good get as well because if they do get a quarterback next year, you have Kyle Pitts and Jameson Williams to.
100%. You have 2 very unique skill sets in the passing game. Receiving tight end and then an absolute deep threat with speed and Jameson Williams.
So this is certainly this is a tough team to mock for.
They're another team. I could see quarterback. I could see offensive tackle. I could see Jermaine Johnson or Jordan Davis again here. They're very tricky to figure out.
Those are the obvious picks, but Seattle never does any of that.
You're right. I mean, could Derek Stingley be in play?
That'd be a phenomenal pick, in my opinion. He probably could be. They lost DJ Reed. They don't have many corners.
It's tough.
Interesting.
Do they go quarterback? I mean, we haven't had one quarterback off the board yet.
Who do you think they would go if they go quarterback? Malik Willis?
Either Willis or Pickett. To me, they're like very close. I don't really know.
Certainly interesting. This is definitely the team that I would have the toughest time actually.
I'm kind of thinking Jermaine Johnson. I'm going to be honest.
You didn't think it's Johnson?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they went Trevor Penny either, though.
That's who I'm thinking of. Like when I think Seattle, I think they're the team to do something like that. But let's go quarterback. Let's change it up. And here's why: because every year in free agency, right? Like we always hear about teams getting a free, and this, well, they got a trade obviously with Drew Lock back. But there's always that team that, like, last year was the Bears when they signed Andy Dalton. They tell you that they like their quarterback the entire time in free agency. Like we're not taking one, and they do end up taking one, right? And in this case scenario, we had no quarterbacks going before they picked, which is probably something maybe they're not expecting.
Right.
They're rebuilding. Like I know they're not
100%.
announcing it, and they're definitely not as far as behind as a team like Atlanta. But realistically, They're one of the worst teams, and they probably are the worst team in their division. They still have young talent. They do. It's a little bit mixed in with veterans. And I don't know what Drew Lock offers you, right? And if they're not in on Baker, which apparently they're not, like, what are they doing? Like, it's just Drew Lock and, our boy Geno Smith. Like, that's all I got. So I think I'll change it up. We'll go Malik Willis here.
Yeah, especially having Drew Lock for a year, I think it allows Malik Willis to kind of come in and, sit early on in his rookie year. And they need some sort of star power. Let's be honest. I mean, You lose Russell Wilson. We don't know what's going to happen with DK Metcalf. Malik definitely makes sense there.
Yeah, I think they're actually going to extend Metcalf, which is why I'm pretty comfortable making this decision. Because if they're going to trade Metcalf, there's no point in me taking
a quarterback.
What is he going to work with? We're talking about a similar issue with the Falcons than we are with the Seahawks in that case scenario. So our Jets are back on the clock.
I think another relative no-brainer here.
Who are you taking?
Drake London.
Okay, I wouldn't call it a no-brainer because
Derek Stingley's on the board.
Yeah, for me, like I told you this like before we started, this is a really tough case for me if it played out like this because the Jets. I want a receiver desperately. Anyone watching this, like if you follow me on Twitter, you know this. Like I want Deebo Samuel. I want any of the receivers essentially that are available. So like I'm not. But if I was making the decision, man. Like, the Jets, Douglas is not in the hot seat per se, but we need to start winning games, which makes sense. Like, obviously, you can't win 6 games in 2 years and be, held like a king. But at the same time, Stingley, I think, is one of the top 5 best players if healthy in this class. But I think the Jets are going to go London. This is not what we would do. I think this is what we're kind of predicting. I feel like London's.
I would go with London, honestly.
Yeah, I like London a lot too. If it wasn't for Stingley on the board, I think it's like 50-50 for me, but I think I would edge the better prospect in this case.
Okay.
Like me just strictly playing the board. But what I think will happen, I think the Jets will take Drake London on draft night.
Gotcha.
Which would be fantastic.
I think they'll go London too. And personally, that is the route I would go just for Zach Wilson's development. I think you got to come away with a receiver at some point in the offseason. And I think 10 is fine value for London, in my opinion. I like his game a lot.
That's fair. The only thing I'll not throw back at you, but, I like George Pickens a lot. So, like, that's another – if I didn't take a wide receiver at 10, that's the guy I'm aiming for at 35 or 38.
I think I'm with you on that.
I'd even move up to the end of round 1 to make something like that happen because people are always mentioning the 2 seconds. You don't need to do that to move up a couple spots. It's not as – I think people are overvaluing the late 20s in terms of how far – you only really need to give a 4th-round pick.
Yep.
At 35. So it's not like a drastic investment to move up. Another player, I'll just throw it out there because I know most people who watch are probably going to be Jet fans. I'm a big fan of Sky Moore if we don't end up taking a receiver at 10. So if Pickens is not there for whatever reason, I know people say he's a little bit similar to Elijah. I don't care. That man can play. Like he gets yak, he runs great routes, and I think he'd be a great scheme fit. But let's move off our Jets. We ended up with, I think most Jet fans are pretty happy, although I know Drake London's definitely, I guess, not a popular guy on Jets Twitter. I guess we'll say some fans would be happy because they did end up with Kayvon anyway. Let's go on to the Washington football team. I also think they're going to take a wide receiver.
I agree. Garrett Wilson, I think, is probably the pick here.
I think it's going to be Wilson or Olave.
Okay.
And I know it would shock people if Olave goes first. I think there's a possibility. I do think there is a possibility, but I'll go Wilson here.
Yeah, I would lean Wilson as well.
I feel like Washington, we'll still talk about them before we talk about the Vikings. Washington is a team that kind of gives away their draft like weeks before. Last year, I remember Jamin Davis being linked to them very heavily. We all kind of assumed it was round 2, but then they ended up taking him 20th overall, whatever it was, 21st. This year, I seen that it was like Ron Rivera. It's like they were looking at through his tenure with Carolina, right? And the only like pro day visits he ever went to, they ended up taking like 3 out of the 4 players who were taken. And this year, the only pro day they went to was Ohio State for the receivers. So like I feel like that's a big clue of like they're going to take Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So
yeah, I agree.
The Minnesota Vikings. This is probably an easy case scenario for them.
I agree.
Maybe Stingley. And for whatever reason, man, I still think Stingley goes in the top 10 when it's all said and done because we had the I guess we had the curveball. We took Malik Willis for Seattle, but there's always a couple curveballs thrown in the draft. So, and 12 is still high. It's still a high pick. I just feel like the buzz you're hearing about Stingley. Apparently, Stingley is in play for Detroit. That's what Jalen Jeremiah said at 2. I don't know how serious that is, but he's in the conversation. So it'd be shocking because they just took a Kuda a couple of years ago, but that's a different regime, and he's literally coming off an Achilles. So, but that would be wild. Like if Stingley, that would literally be full circle. If Stingley actually goes over Sauce, it would be full circle. But
100%. And the upside with Stingley is definitely there. So
wouldn't stun me either. I'll just say that. I will say if Stingley's off the board here, which is a possibility, it might be unpopular because they signed Darius Smith. I think they'll actually go Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, look, the value there definitely if JJ slips at 12.
Yep, and I think they'll kind of copy that Packers recipe where they had both Smiths and they drafted Rashawn Gary.
Yep.
Like we see teams do it all the time, and it's smart. It's one of the premium positions.
Absolutely.
So the Texans, I feel like this is a great scenario that played out for them.
Yeah, I think the top 2 players on the board really are ideal there.
Even Jordan Davis, I could make a case for at 13.
Sure.
But I've actually heard Carl Loftus linked to them a lot. I don't know how true that is, but in this case scenario, I can't really give them Carl Loftus because the board kind of fell like really well for them.
With JJ and Kyle Hamilton, yep.
And I actually think they're going to go JJ. I don't think.
I agree.
Apparently, they're not as high on Hamilton, even because he was linked to them at 3, but apparently they didn't do as much work on him as I guess the other guys. I don't think he's even in consideration for 3 anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, 13. If you took Hamilton, I think it'd be kind of a home run pick for them.
Yep, a good value at that point.
In this case, Tremaine is there. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. That's really good value for him. This one's another easy one for me too. I think it'd be Jordan Davis.
I agree.
Because they have a lot of defense tackles who are free agents. I know they brought back Campbell, but he's in his mid-30s. Jordan Davis would have no issue stopping the runs there. Long-term Brandon Williams replacement. I think he's still so. Play the board, and the Ravens usually do luck out like this, where they get one of the top prospects to follow them and get good value. The Eagles, certainly an interesting team now. They only have 2 first-round picks, obviously. Another team that I think they're looking for a wide receiver, but in this case scenario, man, Hamilton fell here.
Absolutely.
But that's one of those no-brainers where best player available.
Value.
And that's kind of shocking, man. Like Hamilton at 15 a month ago would have been laughed at, but I think we're kind of reaching that point now where I think the highest he can go is 10.
Yep.
And I still think that's kind of still too high. So I really think the highest he can go is probably 12, 13. So
yep.
The Saints are on the clock, another team with 2 first-round picks now. I think the positions they're looking at is offensive line and wide receiver.
Yep.
I guess it could be quarterback too, like Pickett fell here. But I think I go Chris Olave here. I don't think I let the Chargers and Eagles pick before I take a receiver.
I'm with you. I mean, they need receiving help in the worst way. They could use some speed, a deep threat. And I think 16 is, right in the range. Olave will probably be taking him when all is said and done.
Yeah. And that's what we already have 4 receivers off the board now, right? At pick 16. Yep. So the Chargers on the board. I've gone back and forth with this. I've seen obviously defense tackle Jordan Davis in the past, mocked to them a lot. I've seen offensive lineman.
Yep.
I've even seen Olave here and a few other receivers at times. Obviously, the board didn't fall in that case for them in this scenario. Penning's kind of popular pick, but I think they'll go Devin Lloyd.
Okay, I was between Trevor Penning and Devin Lloyd. They could use a right tackle or just even a right guard. Somebody on the right side of that line, and I think Penning would fill that for Justin Herbert. But the thought of Devin Lloyd in a Brandon Staley defense with all the talent they acquired with Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, Sebastian Joseph Day, I mean, you're bolstering that defense in a big way for Brandon Staley. So to me, and the value at 17 for Penning and Lloyd, I think is fair. So you really can't go wrong.
Yeah, I'll say I think it would be wrong if they took Penning, in my opinion. I almost give the Chargers too much credit. I like the way they draft in recent years. I don't think Penning's worth that pick. Like,
okay.
Let me just look at who else is there if they were to go tackle.
But they go Zion Johnson?
I'd be okay with that. I would honestly take Tyler Smith over Penning in this draft class for any team.
I have no issue with that.
But, I mean, do you want to go tackle? It makes sense. It does make a lot of sense for them. Because I remember how bad it was last year.
Just for Justin Herbert, I mean, look, like I said, the thought of Devin Lloyd in that defense, I think is very exciting. And he's worth the 17th pick.
And they do tend to go best player available, right?
What's up?
I think they do tend to go best player available over the years. I feel like I don't know how they wouldn't have McDuffie, I guess you can consider. I would definitely consider him. We didn't really talk about him.
True.
Like Asante Samuel had a couple of concussions last year. I like McDuffie here too. I think that'd be a good scheme fit.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This one's tough.
I think it's either Lloyd or Penning.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what do you want to do? I'll give you a final call here.
Oof. Go with Lloyd.
All right. So the Eagles are back on the clock. We gave them Kyle Hamilton. Do you think they force a receiver here, or they play the board again?
I feel like it's probably between Traylon Burks, Trevor Penning, maybe Lewis Seen at this point, or one of the corners. There's a couple of ways they could go.
This is tough. I feel like they want a receiver, though.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if I think Traylon Burks has a decent chance of falling to the late 20s or out around 1.
Then it becomes who do they take? I mean, it's probably too early for George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, Christian Watson.
Yeah, and I feel like even though a team might need a receiver, if the board fell out the way we're that's why I took Olave at 16. So I don't think you just take a receiver to take one. You know, you don't need it. I feel like you got to just kind of play the board. And for them,
I think it's Penning, Lewis Seen, corner.
Okay, I actually think Daxton Hill's going to go before Seen in this draft.
Okay.
So, but I agree. I like Seen a lot too. I think McDuffie, man. I think he's too good of a player.
Yeah.
I feel like he'd be a good scheme fit. You know, they lost Steven Nelson, who's only on a 1-year deal. Slade's a little bit older. And I know they kind of took 2 DBs. Maybe I don't want to go McDuffie here then.
Lewis Seen. I forgot we gave him Kyle Hamilton. No way I'd go Lewis Seen. I would say.
I actually forgot we took a safety too there, so it's good we looked at it. I don't think they'll end up taking 2 secondary players though. With that being said,
that's a good point. Would they go Trevor Penning then? I feel like that's
Trevor Penning, or that's a good call out. But
with the Hassan Reddick signing, and they paid Josh Sweat. I feel like.
What about Devontae Wyatt?
It's funny. I did consider him here too.
I actually like him here.
I feel like they have so many guys on the interior. I mean, they brought Fletcher Cox back. You have Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, but Cox is only on that 1-year deal, and
That's true.
Definitely slowed down last year. This is tough, man. The Eagles wouldn't be too happy, I don't think, in this scenario if it played out like this.
Yeah, I mean,
even Penning, right? Is Penning going to come in and start right away? No, right?
Probably not.
So, I mean, that's kind of the way the board fell. I think I'd go Wyatt here, honestly, if I was them.
Okay. Yeah, I'd know. You're
not going to go a corner, which I think makes sense because I don't know if they're another team that kind of values the trenches like we do, like a lot of teams do. It would be kind of tough, I guess, selling 2 defensive backs, even though they definitely could go that route. That's probably higher than I've seen Wyatt go, even though it should be his range, I think.
Yeah.
The Saints are back on the clock. We had them going Olave. I think in this case scenario, I think you just go Penning.
I'm with you.
And I do think Penning's going to go relatively high in this draft.
He will.
So,
Steelers.
I think they're a quarterback in this draft class.
Yeah.
We didn't do any trades up, but I feel like they're a prime trade candidate to move up, even for Malik Willis in the real draft.
Yep.
Another team, they signed Trubisky, but they don't have anything long term at quarterback there.
I do feel like if they don't go quarterback, that like an offensive tackle like Tyler Smith could probably be in play.
Yep, I agree. Him, I guess even Linderbaum, Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson. But do you think they're a quarterback in the real draft or no? Or do you think it's in the offensive line?
There's definitely a good chance. I mean, with the Trubisky signing, and it's not necessarily some big commitment, and you give Pickett or whoever some time to come in, not necessarily be forced to start, and I think the 20th pick is fine value there for Pickett, the season he had last year.
And he played, for Pittsburgh, so I don't think anybody's to know him better than Steelers.
100%.
Patriots, definitely interesting team. Let's look at the board a little bit.
There's a couple I'm looking at. I think Zion Johnson, one of the linebackers between Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean, possibly Kyer Elam as well as the J.C. Jackson replacement.
That's a great shout. McDuffie's not really exactly their scheme fit, but I think they would maybe consider him here as well, because it seems like a bit of a fall for him. I don't think they go linebacker. If they do, I think it'd be Quay Walker. I don't think Nakobe Dean's their kind of linebacker. I feel like Devin Lloyd would be their kind of linebacker if he's on the board. That could definitely happen. But obviously in this case, he's gone. So I think Zion Johnson. Did you say him before? Or you said Kenyon Green?
I did. Yeah, I said Zion Johnson.
Yeah, they lost Shaq Mason for really nothing. Wide receiver didn't play out their way, I guess. I mean, I do think do you think Christian Watson goes around 1?
It's borderline.
It's like right there, right? So
yep.
That could be a guy they're targeting, an athletic freak, deep kind of guy.
Right. I feel like a receiver, they just have so many guys. Like, I don't know where they're getting room to draft someone in the first round, but I guess you couldn't rule it out. But I would go Zion.
The Packers. Interesting team. It was like, I think everyone wants us to go wide receiver. I think all their fans want them to go wide receiver. But the Packers don't always play or do the draft like that. I feel like they kind of go best player available too. McDuffie would have been awesome, but they kind of got 2 first round corners. They have a good, and they brought back Douglas as well.
Yep.
But like in terms of scheme fit, McDuffie's awesome. And if he fell here, I don't think it would happen, but I think they would consider it a little bit.
I'm really contemplating George Karlaftis. Once again, Tyler Smith, some versatility on the offensive line with the loss of Billy Turner.
Yep. That's a good shout. You think Raymond goes round 1? I feel like he's been out there a couple times.
I think he will go round 1. I
feel like this is a scenario for him. And one of the Packers picks he's one of the
for sure
choices or possibilities. I like the Tyler Smith shot. I think he does go round 1 too, Tyler Smith.
Yep.
It could be him.
I don't necessarily see Traylon Burks at this point. Do they maybe consider a linebacker with Devondre Campbell?
I don't know. I feel like they're going to be a team that takes defensive linemen. Like, I feel like I put Wyatt here a lot.
Okay. But
he's not here in this case scenario. Apparently, Ian Rappaport has said Logan Hall has been getting like first round buzz at the end of first round. And he's taken at least 5 to 6 top 30 visits.
Okay.
I don't know if the Packers are one of those teams. I feel like he'd be more of the 28 though selection than 22. Travis Jones is a great shout. He'd be a great pick.
Absolutely.
But what do we think here? You think Karlaftis? I think that's a good
pick.
Karlaftis
Karlaftis or Tyler Smith?
You know what? Let's go Tyler Smith. I like that. It's different. Yeah. It's different. Yeah. That was a good shout. Because the Packers do value offensive linemen,
and versatility.
Yeah, and what's his name? Basically missed all of the year last year as well. The left tackle.
Bakhtiari.
Yeah, he came back, but then he kind of got hurt again. So you expect him to be back this year, fully healthy, but you just never know. So the Cardinals, another interesting team.
That's tough for Zion and Tyler both going off the board there for the Cardinals.
I feel like they could definitely go McDuffie.
Yeah.
I know they signed the Vikings corner who just came back after being out of the league for a year or two, Jeff Gladney, I think.
Okay.
But I don't know how much they trust him, coming back. He was a first round pick.
And I think any of those edge defenders between George Karlaftis, Boye Mafe, Arnold Ebiketie, I think they could all be in play here as well.
Lost Chandler Jones. It's
yep.
a good shout. they've gone two linebackers back to back the last 2 years. I do feel like they value edge more than corner.
Agree.
But can they pass on to McDuffie this is kind of a dream scenario where he falls this far?
Yep.
But I feel like you're right. I feel like it's going to be edge.
Yep.
What do you think? I feel like I'm going to vote for Mafe here.
Yeah, I was thinking so too.
He just kind of seems like that kind of scheme fit, and I do. I think I like Karlaftis better.
I do as well.
It's all about like the scheme.
About the scheme fit. Yep. Cowboys. They're one of the trickiest teams to me. Yeah. Like they could go receiver, offensive line, defensive back.
Yeah, you're right. If I had to guess, I'll go Kenyon Green.
You said the exact player I was going to say.
But I wouldn't exactly feel confident with that pick.
Right.
You have to, I think Burks probably is in play.
Right.
But they do seem to take the best player available. So McDuffie also makes sense for me here because he keeps on falling and
true.
If he gets past here, I think we're definitely taking him next for the Bills. That
right.
Seems like a great
scheme fit.
And I get he's a little bit smaller than most corners, which definitely will, I guess, take him off certain draft boards. Right. So there is a possibility he does kind of fall to 24, 25. But it's one of those things where you kind of have to see it to believe it, and maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But for the Cowboys, I do feel like they're another team with Dan Quinn at the helm of defense. They most likely they value the trenches more anyway on both sides. And they lost Connor Williams. The line's been banged up a little bit over the years. It's definitely nowhere near as good as it was, a couple years ago. I think it's time they released Collins, I think, for very strange reasons. So I think it's time to really start reinvesting in the line and getting it back or near, hopefully back to what it was.
Yep. Love Kenyon Green there. So the Bills, I guess Trent McDuffie, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's we don't really got to talk about any other.
Do you contemplate Breece Hall in the least or no?
Oh, I love Breece Hall, but
I do too.
If you're giving me a corner or running back, they're going to take a corner, especially because Tre'Davious White's coming off an ACL and Levi Wallace left in free agency. So this is kind of that would really complete their defense. The defense is already set, but adding Von Miller and Trent McDuffie in one offseason.
Yep.
And they brought back Jordan Phillips, who's, I know it's not a big shout, but they just keep on adding to that defensive line.
Yep.
Titans. This is one of the teams that I had kind of penciled in for Tyler Smith.
Okay.
That's been I don't know why I kind of view them as another team with him in mind. I could definitely see a receiver. I know they got Robert Woods, AJ Brown. I think he's going to be extended, but other than those two, I don't really see anything.
Agree.
Long term there. I actually
John Dotson down.
Certainly, that'd be a nice pick. Get him in the slot, a nice deep threat.
Yep. I was thinking possibly Bernard Ryman, possibly Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker. Those were the four I was kind of torn between.
Yeah, they're really interesting, right? Because they lost both linebackers, right, in free agency, Evans and Brown. So, I think if Devin Lloyd was here, it'd be a no-brainer, but he's not. I don't think Nakobe Dean goes around one anymore. I don't. I think he should, but I don't think he will. I think you're right. I think Quay Walker actually goes over him.
He probably will.
That could be a shout. But their line was really bad last year. I think they gave up the most sacks in the league. They unfortunately had the bust Isaiah Wilson a couple years ago, and a couple injuries along the line since then. So I feel like they're going to go back and reinvest in the line. I feel like you almost have to, right? Questions. Their defense is good, major upgrade from a year ago. But in a conference as good as the AFC, and you want Henry to run the ball. You want Tannehill as effective as possible. You can't have him being the most sacked quarterback in this kind of conference as well. I feel like Raymond's the only one that makes sense here.
Agree.
I think this is high for him. I do, but
I'm with you.
Yeah, well, like we said again, we're predicting what we think will happen, not what we would do. So the Bucks, this is a tough team to pick for. They really have a good roster.
They do.
I think I'll just say a couple names. I think Travis Jones makes sense here. I think Linderbaum kind of makes sense here, even though Jensen kind of came back on a 2 or 3 year deal?
3, yep.
Corner for sure. Even even at Daxton Hill, because they did lose Whitehead, I think there are going to be 2 safeties taken in the first round, if not 3,
Yeah.
I think 2 for sure. And we've only had Kyle Hamilton go, which is a bit of a shock so far. I think I'm gonna lean Daxton Hill here.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that.
Because they lost Jordan Whitehead. Who's this? It's Winfield and Edwards there right now.
Yep.
But they like having the third safety. I think Edwards' contract is also up after this year. So they kind of have the luxury of picking ahead of getting a year early than a year late.
Yep.
Positions. Packers. So we did have them taking Tyler Smith originally. I think they let's look at the board again.
Karlaftis, Burks, both very intriguing.
I think Packers fans would kind of melt down if they don't take a wide receiver again.
Yeah.
But just with that being said, though, I don't know if the Packers force that pick. I don't think it's a force here. I think this is good value at this point for Burks. I think this would be, but I think Karlaftis fits them really well.
I agree, and I think he's just a safer prospect overall.
Yeah, it certainly is. I don't know if I don't know how much input they've gave Rodgers in the past, but this might come down to him about how much he likes Burks.
Right.
But let's stick on a brand, man. I think I'm gonna take Karlaftis if I had to vote.
I'm with you.
Because again, this is what the Packers do, and the board kind of fell this way. And Karlaftis is versatile. He's a good player. It'd be good to pair up with Gary. Their defense is already really good, so this would just be adding to it.
100%. And
Gary Smith, so.
You look at it, I mean, you touched on it earlier with the signings of Darius Smith and Preston Smith and still drafting Rashawn Gary. And you look at them traditionally, I mean, it's really second round for them with the receiver. You look at Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Ty Montgomery. I mean, all those guys were really mid-round picks. So I think if Karlaftis is there at that point, the value is too good. And you address receiver mid-round. And you hope that, guys like Amari Rodgers can, take on more of a role in his second year.
Agreed. And they also have 2 second-round picks. So don't panic, Packers fans, because I mentioned Pickens. I mentioned Sky Moore. Christian Watson didn't go so far in this scenario. Jahan Dotson's still on the board. I feel like, and you can even move up in round 2 anyway to get one of these guys if they really like him. So it's not the end of the world. I know Packers fans would be panicking at the end of round 1, end of day 1. There's no wide receiver, but I think it is a possibility. I do. So Chiefs, another team that traded away their star wide receiver. Now they have back-to-back picks. I feel like it's simple. I feel like they're going to go corner at one of them and probably receiver. So what do you think?
I was thinking I had those 2 down. I had potentially D-line as well.
So with the board playing like this, what are you thinking?
What edge defenders are still there? Oh man, that's tough.
Keddy would be the only other one who goes around.
Yeah.
As a possibility.
We do
have another one that's definitely available. We got Booth. We got
Elam, Gordon.
I feel like Elam would be their kind of pick.
Agree.
But let's look at receiver too. We'll look at defense.
Dotson.
I feel like they'd be a team though. It takes Burks or Watson here. Even Scott Moore could go here too.
Yeah, it's tough.
We don't got to panic because they take back-to-back. So
right.
So we want to come back to the receivers, and I feel like they are going to take corner with one of the picks for sure.
Yeah, lost Charvarius Ward. Who do you think they go with out of Booth, Elam, Gordon?
I think Elam because Booth's kind of coming off that core muscle surgery. I just feel like he's the best scheme fit probably for them too.
Right.
Man, so. Let's just look at the defensive line again because there's a chance, Logan Hall, like I said, has been getting that first round buzz. I still think Travis Jones goes around 1. I do, but this is kind of a scenario where I think he's going to fall out, which would be great for me and you because we want him as a Jet. But
I still think edge and receiver are probably the top 2.
Yeah,
I feel like even George Pickens is pretty fascinating there.
I would take him there. I just for what I seen today, that kind of scared me. Apparently, he didn't interview well or something.
Oh, really?
So there's some scout, but you don't know how true this is at this point of the year. We're talking about we're 6 days away, so we can't believe everything.
Throwing anything out there because
Pickens, I think, if healthy, is literally a top 3 or 4 receiver in this entire class.
Yep.
and he's definitely next. What they need is definitely a different player than Tyreek, no doubt. But with Mahomes,
I mean, he's got 6'3", size. He's a vertical threat with 4.4 speed, and man, those contested catches on those go balls. I mean, he's really good. I mean, you have him, MVS, McCall Hardman. You could do worse.
Oh yeah, absolutely, especially with Mahomes. But it's not what we would do. Remember that, because I would take him.
Right.
But what do we think the Chiefs do?
I feel like edge could strongly be in play. I got to be honest. I feel like they don't have very much on the D line.
Do you think they would double down on defense here?
What's up?
Double down on defense like the Packers just did? Well, the Packers never run.
I think when you look at their offense, really the only position they could go is receiver, I wouldn't even take any of the offensive linemen at this point. You're not drafting another running back.
All right, so we're sticking with because they do have 2 seconds as well, so they're kind of like the Packers. I still think defense lines in play too, other than edge. Eddie would be the other one for me for edge, but I feel like there's better value at Travis Jones or even Logan Hall at this point.
Yeah,
this is tough. I'll give you final decision: edge, linebacker, not linebacker, edge, defense line, or receiver.
I think I'm going to go Ebiketie. I got to be honest.
Okay. That's why you don't wait to take an edge. Anybody watching? His teams are going to do it.
The Bengals.
A very interesting team. I feel like Linderbaum's in linked here.
Yep.
If they don't go Tyler Linderbaum, right? I think the corner. Do you agree with that or no?
Yeah, I would agree.
So let's look at the corners.
Booth and Gordon, I think, is the two. I
think they would go Gordon.
Yeah.
Because Booth, it's not that it's a knock on him, but he is coming off of core muscle surgery.
Right.
I feel like Gordon's kind of not that Booth isn't a good scheme fit, but I feel like Gordon kind of suits them to a T.
Right.
But let's decide now, because we're talking about Gordon, we're talking about Booth, we're talking about Linderbaum. I think are your three options. Possibly a linebacker, but I feel like they feel better about it than probably the public does. Right.
I mean, maybe Quay Walker. Do they potentially look? I mean, Lewis Cine is still there.
Yeah, that's a good shout. They did. I think they'll bring back Bates. They have Von Bell, so maybe. But then again, third safety it's not a bad.
Right. And you said it with Linderbaum as well. I mean, the Bengals are in a good spot. It's not like they're, they addressed the offensive line and that was their most pressing need. So that they can kind of do whatever they want, in my opinion here.
I think it'll be corner, because I don't think they view Eli Apple as a long-term answer.
Right.
I feel like even Awuzie had a good year last year. Corner overall is year to year is very up and down. So he might not have as good as a year. So I feel like you kind of have to strengthen that unit, know. And obviously, I think Trey Wayne is gone, even though he didn't really contribute. But he was expected to contribute. Obviously, it didn't work out with injury reasons. So I'll let you decide, Booth or Gordon, if you had to bet for the Bengals.
Wow. I think Gordon.
I agree, and it's funny because he's a player that me and you talked about for the Jets at possibly 35 or 38.
Right.
And honestly, I don't think he makes that around 1 now.
Yeah.
So it's funny how a lot of these players kind of come almost full circle.
Full circle, like you said, yep.
Yeah. So the Lions, we'll say this before they make the pick. They do pick 34, so they kind of almost back to back.
Right.
I do think, obviously, there's no trades in this scenario. I do think that, one, they could take a quarterback to have a fifth-year option, but that also works for any other team in the late 20s, early 30s. If anybody that wants to move up at the top of the second or mid-second wants to come up and get a quarterback, these are kind of the general sweet spots for them to do it. The Lions seem to be, we had them taking
Aiden Hutchinson.
So they got the edge. I feel like Dan Campbell and them have been pretty honest. They've said, I think, linebacker and safety in the past, or not even in the past, at the Senior Bowl. Obviously, it could still be corner, but let's just look at the board. The quarterbacks that have gone, I've been only 2, Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett. I do think there'll be 3 taken in the first round.
I think Ritter has a chance.
Yeah, Ritter's apparently liked by a lot of people around the league.
And you said that fifth-year option flexibility is nice. I just think Lewis Cine could be tough to pass up on.
Yeah, he should definitely be a first-round pick. And I think Quay Walker's been getting a lot of talk about as being even the first linebacker taken, which is crazy. So I believe that. I think if Quay Walker's not taken here, he'll be taken by Jacksonville.
And I would even say receiver. There's still Traylon Burks, George Pickens, John Dotson, Christian Watson. So there's a multitude of ways they can go.
Sorry.
I think ultimately, though, with that 50-year option, I might go with Desmond Ridder.
Okay. I think I agree. Okay, so that's our entire draft. Interesting. It's actually not the way I kind of planned it to go. Not that we had it planned originally. We just kind of talked it all out. That's what kind of usually happens. We get a couple curveballs through the regular NFL draft. It should be fun. We're 5 days away now, so there'll be no more guessing. We'll have answers finally. But let us know what you guys think. Where you guys would have gone differently, maybe for your team, and what are you guys hoping for? More importantly, for your team come draft night.